Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. This is your favorite psychic medium and metaphysician, Dr. D. Oracle. And on this video, I'm going to be discussing why Yahweh, the God of Israel, is not the primordial creator, but he is in fact an astral god. And there are many gods in the astral realm. In my last video, I talked about Yahweh's demonic connections, and in this video, I will be expounding a little bit more on that. But first, a little background on the Yahwehs versus the Elohimists. And then we are going to understand further why Yahweh is merely a god of the astral realm. For one, I do want to tell you that demons help us to conquer our weaknesses, while gods help us conquer our strengths. No energy is useless. This is the way we change our perspective and not allow others to paint a picture for us. Ancient gods were in fact demons. So how did all of this get so mixed up and confused? I'm going to give you the background on that first. So I just want to go back to making a reference to the two groups. There were the Elohists, and then there are the Yahwehs. The Elohists were more of the ancestors. Those were the people like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob who actually deified a god by the name of El. Okay? Over time, that has vamped into the God we now know as Yahweh. Okay, so here's a little background on that. The Yahweh's text itself is most likely a compilation of stories, traditions, and archival material that was shaped into a continuous narrative by southern Judean scribes or scribes. It is difficult to say when these traditions and stories were shaped into the larger narrative we call the Yahwehs, but it could not have been earlier than the 8th century BC. Many of the Yahweh stories display knowledge of the geopolitical world as it was in the 9th through 8th centuries BC. The final form of the Yahweh's text was probably fixed sometime in the 7th century BC and continued to be revised into the exilic and post-exilic periods, the 6th through 5th centuries BC. We must bear in mind that ancient texts are products of their historical circumstances. Stories were written down to preserve tradition, define identity and or nationality, and explain present religious and political institutions and beliefs by tracing them back to their ancestors. So what they're saying here is that there's really an oral tradition that went on for many years, and then later on during the exilic periods, a Judean scribe or several scribes started to take those oral stories and actually, write them down. Okay, once they did that, then two different traditions got merged together. Okay, the god El with the god Yahweh. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. We must bear in mind, like I said, that ancient texts are a product of their historical circumstances. So stories were written down to preserve tradition, define identity and or nationality, and explain present religious and political institutions and beliefs by tracing them back to their ancestors. Much of the ancient literature that makes up what later tradition has come to understand and interpret as the Bible, quote unquote, had its roots in the scribal activity of the royal courts and temple precincts of the late monarchical or late 8th century and 7th century BC, exile 598 to 539 BC, and post-exile periods. As such, it was literature that was never produced for dissemination to the public. So we have to remember they were reading scrolls. They had, they didn't have mass production. So the priests had to read to the people, okay, and interpret for the people, Okay. In fact, there was no such thing as a public readership. It did not exist. Rather, religious and political texts were written to support or legitimate the beliefs or worldviews of its author and its community to other elites and powerful political figures, or to condemn and illegitimate the position of others, as we will see. Alright? So they're basically telling you that the political people hired the priest, and the priest would read off to the people. Mostly because when someone was a king, they said that God chose them to be king. They were anointed by God to be king. They were divinely chosen to be king. They call this the divine right to rule. So now that I've given you a short background on that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get into why it is, right, that Yahweh is not the primordial creator. He is the God of the astral realm. So listen up, I got something for you. So here we're leaving off in a space where we're finding that the masses cannot read. There weren't a lot of scrolls or books made where people could just go out and buy them like we can today. So they needed people to translate certain knowledge to them, okay, to speak to them, to read it to them, okay. So this left a big open space for two things. Did you know that faith, the product of belief, is a spiritual currency? Well, in this video, I'm going to be discussing what that gets you in the astral realm and how Yahweh's profited off this spiritual currency to create wealth in the material realm. I'm going to further break down Yahweh's demonic connections in the astral realm and how this is related to concepts like shadow government. I'm also going to shed some light on the astral realm and how it operates as a bridge to earth, and why people have remnants of the knowledge of interdimensional portals that lead to these different astral planes, and NASA is studying them. So let's just get right into it. Let's go back to understanding that humans were given a choice to live freely in earth and to learn to understand how the astral realms work, or to give belief over to El, a deity that created the garden for them to live in. In this myth, the humans chose to do their own thing and lost their land. This El then decides to favor some offspring of them and promise them new land. This sounds like blatant deception. From Adam to Abraham, we have a promise predicated on belief in a one true God who takes away land to punish and gives land to reward. This is all about attaining spiritual currency to maintain status and power in the astral realm, and to be a god over the elements and the access people have to the astral realms. This is why occult powers are separate from religion. Religion means constantly revamping a god to achieve the spiritual currency, to uphold that status in the astral realms, and by that control the elements. In the astral realm, the elements do have intelligence, and they are frequently called devas or devils. Some are called jinn, but they help to assimilate our bodies and everything in nature. This is actually what you should learn to connect with and remain conscious of in the astral, so that you become so acquainted with them that they start to help you open up to more than the 10% of the brain you are using, which only keeps you knowledgeable of the astral realm for 10% of your existence there in the afterlife, so that you keep falling asleep. And some even lose their soul there and have to take up a new one, which leads them to reincarnate rather unconsciously and lose the downloaded consciousness or soul, the information and insight that they've gained in each life that gives them added insight upon their incarnation. In this way, it's like you keep starting over instead of gaining additional awareness each time you reincarnate. So what they're basically, telling us here is that the way that we open up to the astral realm while we're on this plane of existence, it gives us more control over our awareness in the astral realm when we transition into the afterlife. Okay? Now, in this way, more and more people start to populate the earth. Okay, this is where that overpopulation talk is coming from, intuitively speaking. Instead of more and more people leaving the earth, right, and going up into the astral realm and being able to continue eternally in the astral realm. Some people have been able to do it. And by belief in an astral entity upon death, they have the final judgment over you, which also determines where you go in the astral realm. If your belief followed you there, you can be subjected to whatever the mind of the person who created the religion has said in the end, or has said is the end. Okay, people who make up religions usually are going along with an agenda that was accepted and handed to them by one of the astral gods in exchange for the spiritual currency I spoke about earlier. And aside from the devas, there are humans who have wanted to become gods themselves. That's what the Caesars were trying to do. The ancients understood those doorways to Godhead. Today, this is the occultic side of religion. The old cults of ancient times deified humans in this manner, allowing these beliefs and thoughts to be occurrent for them in the astral to achieve Godhead. In the Bible, the sons of God coming down to mate with women refers to devas or elementals. And those are mental and or psychic frequencies taking on bodies. I must make you aware that Earth is also self-producing and had beings of its own, and they were once astral beings as well. Okay, the universe is all mind. The astral realm are the several layers of mind that are in existence, and in the astral realm, thoughts are very, very powerful. Like I said, thoughts and beliefs, those are mental frequencies. Okay, so I'm going to be explaining more about that as we go along. So the beings of the higher and lower astral realms had different forms of knowledge. We've talked about the sons of God. So I must make you aware that Earth is self-producing. I said that. So the beings of the higher and lower astral realms had different forms of knowledge, but astral beings reincarnating on Earth taught about how to connect with those realms through magic. So let's talk about the magic and how the 72 names of Yahweh also happen to be synonymous with the 72 names of the demons mentioned in Goetia. Moses uses these names to part the Red Sea. We know that in magic we are actually working in the astral realm to manifest here. So everything that we start off in the mental realms, okay, of our mind, we manifest it on this plane of existence, on the material realm. Okay, so if you think of a chair in your mind, it's just in your mind until it's created and you manifest it here in the material realm. Okay, what's happening here? Okay, what happens here when Moses parts the Red Sea? First off, the number 72 has a significance in freemasonry. Well, as you say, 72 names of God in some traditions, 72 degrees is the interior angle of a point of a regular pentagram. Some Masonic orders cap their membership at 72 members per chapter. Not only that, but you need these names to command a demon. Why is this important? I did say this video was going to cover interdimensional portals, and now this is the stuff Yahwehs don't want you to know. See, navigating the astral realm will make you aware of several ways this reality truly works, which conceals the fact that humans have God within them and can control their awareness through life and death. And death, which is really just life in the astral realm, you cease to have a body, and so now your energy is just psychic and spiritual. Okay, those are mental energies too when the soul stays connected. Okay, you can travel the astral now, but the point is to remain fully conscious in life and the transition, so you can keep your soul consciousness while in the astral realm and bring it with you here. So no being on earth can be confused as the one and only God. If there is only one God, then you cannot be that. When new consciousness was able to come through the portals, higher beings from the astral realm, they were mistaken as God by primitive humans, okay? The beings that were already here. And some of them enjoyed this while others did not. The ancient gods were then considered demons or demonstrations of God. These human demonstrations of God had light and dark aspects. This is where that angel or angle of the pyramid point comes in. At a man's highest pinnacle, he taps into that light. That's what freemasonry is about. But how can you steal that status without doing the work of a god? The spiritual currency of people's beliefs and faith can elevate you to that. Thoughts and attention immediately manifest in the astral. So if people in certain areas where certain consciousness came in from the astral were overtaken by that consciousness, it was elevated to the status of God by a belief or confession that it is Lord of the land as well as God. That in no way means it is a creator, but because mind is all and there's so much mental or psychic power being given by the gods of the earth, they create the godship of the person in heaven or in the psychic mental realms, the astral realms. That God would then have the submission of all things astral and therefore on earth. Then they have control over the dark and light aspects of this reality. So Yahweh could be ruler of both gods and demons. So what I'm basically saying here is that when so many people believe something and so many people confess that it is true, that is connected to a psychic current and a mental current that is used in the astral realm to elevate certain beings. Okay, so if a divine king has you to accept his God and say that this is the one and only God, and to believe in this God because it supports his politics, okay, in the astral realm, whatever demon or god is helping him, remember I said ancient gods or demons, to conquer his weaknesses. That's why a lot of gods were about fertility and weather, because those were the points where human beings were weak, right? We felt that we couldn't control it, right? So whenever we have a weakness, we try to look to a higher power or higher being to help us with that, okay? And so that's what they were doing by having fertility gods or weather gods, okay? They kind of felt like, you know, this is the power that we're going to draw down so that we can be able to have control over this, right? And be able to eat and be protected from the elements in times when, you know, weather was harsh, okay? So that's basically how certain demons became gods. The kings themselves had pacts with these astral beings, okay? And they took that pack and they sold it to the people so that the people could support their political endeavors. Okay? The astral realm itself is literally the mental realms where all of where everything that is created in this reality is first created. And it is not part of the primordial creation. Okay? So that is a new creation. Some of this might sound akin to Gnosticism. They call it the demiurge. We are literally clones of that realm. Okay? When we dream at night, those dreams originate there in that realm. In religion, they tell you to stay away from psychic mediums and magicians or people who access these realms to deter people from opening up their full God mind and to keep entities in power who feed shadow government and take energy from humanity, then tell you a false way to get that power back. It will also have you sleep in the astral realm where it's like your soul kind of detaches from you if you sleep so much, and it goes back into the collective human consciousness, and then you have to get a new soul. So it's kind of sort of like you never evolve. Okay, you never evolve from having to reincarnate as a human. It will also have, I said that they tell you the opposite in religion, which is to stay focused on a particular being, right? To believe in a being, okay? To confess that this being is the God of your life. I can't confirm whether a being like Yahweh absorbs souls, but I think, predicated on how the astral realm works, there is something absorbing these souls and using them for reincarnation so that it's more easy to maintain power on earth. But that's another video. I do know the Freemasons crack the code to religion and they are not confused by the dogma. But ladies and gentlemen, dogma cloaks truth. I'm not here to mislead anyone, but to tell you that you are actually gods too. I also know prophets and prophecy is meant to keep people dumbed down from access to the other realms. Yahwehs who give us the Bible are blocking us from the tree of life. You can even study Kabbalah and not understand the hidden truth about this reality. The universe is all kind and Yahweh is not the universe. If I told you NASA knows about the interdimensional portals and studies them and gives you false landings of the moon, and this is why, how would you feel? It is for no other reason but to establish full control over this reality so that people like the Yahwehs can have dominion over all land, knowing this aspect of the universe is truly God. I believe that's why the idea of religion takes people on these crusades and missions, to get all people prepared to confess one entire God and control these portals so no one can come in and ruin that. However, that in itself is a whole nother video. But there are some real jewels that can open you up to your journey of traveling the astral realms, psychic phenomena, and magic. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. So, what I'm basically telling you is that gods were presented to people, but they weren't really gods, okay? They were actually astral gods, not the primordial God. And they became stronger in their godhead from the worship that people on earth give them. It actually takes away the godhead that the people on earth hold for themselves, and it's relinquished to another being who is not the creator. So we have a situation here where there's deception in religion. Some of it comes from those translations where The Elohists were following more of an oral tradition, and they followed a different god named El, and the Yahwists presented their description of God and kind of like combined it with El during the exile period. The reason why is because they wanted to preserve their tradition. They had lost political power, okay? So it was helpful for them to say that God had gave them that land, or that God had an issue for them or chose them, okay? And so one story just kind of morphed into like that Yahweh story, okay? So that the Jews of that time could feel more important and support also just their ideology of being God's chosen people, okay? Because at the time of exile, they pretty much lost most of their political power. But what I will tell you is that other kings and people that had moved into the area and conquered them, it was very helpful for them to use the priest to keep the people calm, right? So they won't rebel. And it was also the priest, okay, who wanted to like preserve this knowledge, okay? They wanted to actually make it bigger than what it was. So by combining those two gods, they ended up changing El, who was the father of all gods. They said El gave birth to the pantheon of Canaanite gods. And Yahweh was actually more of a demigod, because he was an offspring of El, okay? I definitely think Baal is El, but you know, I'm not going to go into that right now. Mostly, this is to talk about how Yahweh feeds off of all of the people on earth, and that allows him to be able to be the head god in the astral realm. That could change at any moment, right? There are several gods in the astral realm. There's not just one. And we are actually those gods, okay? But when we reincarnate here on the planet, and we're paying homage to that energy, like I said, that's a spiritual currency. So in those astral realms, that actually is the same as like land or money here, okay? So I just wanted to make this video so you can understand a little bit more about the exchange of energy that you're giving away when you place someone else as a god over yourself. I do think we all should definitely ascribe to our own gods, okay? By the fact that Yahweh has many races who have converted to either Judaism or Christianity, there are a mass of people now who are giving power to an astral entity, okay, instead of taking that power back for themselves. So I'm just gonna kind of summarize everything for you, because I know I covered a lot in a small amount of time. But we begin with the Elohists, who worshipped El, versus the Yahwists, who worshipped Yahweh, and Israel being conquered and being led into exile. At that particular time, certain scribes took the oral traditions, and there were some things that were written down, but not much, and they pieced those stories together and filled them in with different things without clarifying exactly who El was, Yahweh was, and which God, people were actually worshiping. Also, we have a mass of people who cannot read or write, and so the priests translate these written scriptures to them. Okay? Also, they support the political climate. They support the king, okay, at that time. Some of that was meant to keep the people calm so that they would go along with wars and different political agendas, okay? So for some of you conspiracy theorists, this is where some of these things started, and you can kind of trace back a little history to support those theories that you have. Also, we talked about the astral realm, and that being a place where the layers of mind exist, and how faith and belief could be used to elevate a God in those non-material realms, okay? Also, how exchanging that currency with a demon is also synonymous with being able to take over a certain portion of land, or being able to claim that, God had given you a certain right to the monarchy and to have rule over people. In return, that astral being is elevated because they are actually exchanging a spiritual currency for a material currency. And this is how people tend to keep power in the material realm. They're able to hold on to different lands, make themselves God, even in the astral realm, like the Caesars, wanted to do. So these are some occult insights that are separate from religion and have been given or passed on to the masses. And that is why even the English monarchy, when they have gone into different countries, they, have taken our ancestors as slaves, and they said, take this book, read this book. And we learned that religion, okay? But in all actuality, the astral realm also has to do with our spiritual evolution when we are doing our transformation into the afterlife. It has to do with us being able to stay awake and alert. And when we incarnate, we gain higher levels of awareness through being able to keep the different souls that we have attached ourselves to, our spirit has attached itself to, so that we can incarnate upon this earthly plane of existence, okay, taking all the full faculties of our mind. You know how they say we only use 10% of our brain, but if we were to actually keep all of the souls that we've attained over all of the time that we've reincarnated, then we would definitely be using more than 10% of our brain. I want you guys to leave me some comments in the comment section and let me know what you feel about this. But the astral realm is the place where thoughts, okay, different levels of psychic abilities, that's the place where it originates, in the astral realm. And then we're able to reincarnate in a body. The elements help us do that, so that we can, have a container for those mental and psychic energies that we've attained over time. Part of the reason why people continue to reincarnate and they're not spiritually evolving, and we've had an increase in the population on earth is because people who believe in those religious entities, their souls are lost. Okay, so the end is spelled out by whatever religion that person attended, and once they believe that and have faith in that, they are basically going to meet that fate, the fate that religion says is the end, and then they have to start all over again. But people who understand occult powers, and they understand how the occult works, and they're already doing their work to explore the astral realm and really look at all the different aspects of who they are, both as a god who has elevated strengths and as a demon who has demoted weaknesses. Okay, they're losing that ability, or they're gaining more of that ability. So when they're reincarnating here, yes, they have more psychic ability. They can do telepathy. And when they're going or crossing over into the astral realm, they are actually achieving eternal life. Okay, so leave me some comments down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what conclusions that you've drawn from what I've presented to you today. And I just want to thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you click on that like and subscribe button if you enjoy the content of my channel, and click on the little bell so you can be notified when I upload new videos. And I am going to be expounding more on this in future videos so that you can have more insight, more information for better reasoning and judgment. And I'm not just basing this on a Gnostic point of view, but these are some of the things that Spirit has revealed to me, and that through my research I've been able to confirm. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching.